Next to the stage is Genesis Minerals. Raleigh Finlayson, the Managing Director, great friend and client of Canaccord's. Raleigh Finlayson is a mining engineer with over 20 years of technical and operational experience in the mining industry. He was previously the Managing Director of Saracen Mineral Holdings, leading Saracen's growth from a junior explorer and developer into a $6 billion company at the time of the merger with Northern Star. In 2001, Raleigh led a strategic funding package with Genesis Minerals. As Managing Director of Genesis, Raleigh and his team look forward to building a new premium Australian gold miner. Thanks, Raleigh.
Thank you, JD. So from Australia's largest gold producer to a small company with a small co-DNA, but a company that thinks big and one that aspires to join the likes of Newcrest in the ASX 100. It is my honour to present the inaugural Diggers presentation of Genesis 2.0 this morning. I'd also like to thank Canaccord and the Diggers community for this opportunity. The presentation titled today, The First Step, or Genesis 2.1 if you will, is referring to our recently announced takeover proposal of Dacian Gold. It is our first step to deliver our purpose, being the Australian gold producer respected for our people, partnerships, performance and pairing, and that's pairing of synergistic assets in the Leonora region. Initial observation from many on the Genesis material, the logo, some of the colour palette, the artistry, the presentation templates does resemble that very closely of Saracen. And from my perspective, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We also, on a recent roadshow through Melbourne, came across a previous Saracen investor who mid-presentation was getting a tad confused exactly which company we were presenting. It's fair to say, though, that by the end of the presentation, Mr. Smith was very grateful of the rekindling of the fond memories he had as a Saracen shareholder over the journey. Just onto the corporate overview, and the similarities don't end there. So the substantial shareholders you can see there, Paradise, Airlie Griffiths, were dominant substantial shareholders of Saracen over the journey. The only obvious admission of that group is Kerry Stokes and the ACE group, who are stalking just below substantial. I'd like to thank those shareholders and Northern Star for recently cornerstoning $100 million equity raising in a pretty tough market, and also thank Hartley's Euroz and Canaccord for helping us raise those funds. From a board and management perspective, we've got a great blend of loyal long-term Genesis execs and directors in the likes of Tommy McKeith, Jerry Kazmarek, previously CFO of Saracen, and Jeff James. Ex-Saracen executives of the likes of Morgan, Troy and Lee joining the group, and plus new additions like Michael Bowen, Neb Power and Andrew Francis, who have joined us from as previously the COO of Bardock, and soon to be additions in the likes of Mick Wilkes and Tony Kiernan. Most importantly, all of those names I mentioned are all shareholders and currently own 6.3% of the company. And from a personal basis, on a fully diluted basis, even after assuming 100% acquisition of Dacian, I own 10% of the company. So we are fully aligned with shareholders to make sure that we deliver on our vision. Just taking you back a step on the Genesis 2.1 journey, in September last year we announced a recap of the new management team. 6 months after that I attended Harvard University, and my final thesis was actually developing a roadmap for Genesis 2.0. Troy and I conducted over 100 interviews of various stakeholders, primarily focused around what does good look like for successful businesses and what's important to key stakeholders. I'd like to thank all those individuals who participated in that survey. The next course of action in March this year was to conduct a company-wide strategy day. We had 100% of our workforce attending that day, and basically all of the purpose, vision and core values you can see on this page were derived bottom up from that workforce. This is not a strategy that was developed traditionally from a board level and thrust upon employees. What I've learned over my career and reviewing 200 plus successful businesses over the Harbour journey, this bottom-up strategic planning process is critical foundation to what would ultimately become a winning culture. Our plan on our page, our finished product if you will, has 4 strategic pillars that are all designed around meeting our vision. Our vision to become the premier Australian gold miner with sustainable, high-quality 300,000 ounces per annum across 2 operations, lower all-in costs, 7 years plus mine life, and 100% gold from Australia. Today I'll be purely focusing on, in my opinion, the 2 most important pillars at the moment, people and culture and M&A. People is often referred to as your most important asset, and Lyndon referred to that, and he's welcome to country this morning. But in my opinion, the organisational culture is your ultimate acid test on how the ability of a CEO to be able to stand up on this stage and proclaim that filters down into your organisation. You can have as many tier 1 assets as you want in your portfolio, but it means little if you don't have the loyal, dedicated and talented people to be able to safely and profitably exploit those assets to the benefit of your shareholders. We have a very clear mantra at Genesis: we hire for attitude and we train for talent. Our 30-odd strong workforce at the moment, I'm happy to articulate that we have both. We have talented individuals, many ex-Saracen execs, who are proven performers and delivered over 8 years of consecutive guidance to the benefit of our shareholders. And most importantly, attitude. Those same individuals have come to Genesis, taken significant pay cuts, developed their own unique remuneration model, which basically had us as a low base salary but high at-risk incentives over a long period of time, which is absolutely aligned with our shareholders. For those in the room that are keen to join Genesis and maybe clip a bit of a pay rise on the way through, you need not apply. For those that are keen to join our company on the focus of career advancement and to join a values-driven, growth-orientated company that's heavily focused on incentives over the long term with a can-do attitude, absolutely you should apply. We are in an enviable position at the moment in a tough market, not only getting access to people, but also on the basis of having the Mount Morgan's operations mining, both open pit and underground, currently winding down, just as we're starting our development assets. Just onto our M&A pillar, we are a disciplined first approach. We have a track record over the Saracen journey of doing 8 deals over 16 years. Pleasingly, none of those acquisitions were related or regretted doing, and were all highly accretive to our shareholders. We have a strong DD team, and we are focused on high standards of due diligence, which I'll touch on in a second. We are absolutely Leonora focused. The Dacian transaction is consistent with this strategy, and hence the green ticks on this page. We are leveraging the long milling short ore thesis in the region, and we're absolutely exploiting our home ground advantage with our management team having owned and operated over half the assets in the region. Consolidation not only makes sense, it's actually being demanded by our shareholders. We acknowledge we may have lit the fuse on consolidation in the region, but from my personal perspective, the timing or structure of such deals is less important than actually getting the deals done. We do exhibit optionality. In 2013, as a 32-year-old first-time MD of Saracen, I stood up here with a presentation titled "Pick a Gold Price, Saracen Has a Strategy." In 2022, I stand up here with a similar theme. We have people, a robust balance sheet, market support, operational flexibility, and time to be able to execute our plan. The DD team I mentioned before not only have significant experience, but more important, specific Leonora experience. And a majority of the members on this team were involved with the 8 acquisitions we conducted over the Saracen journey. Just moving on to the Dacian transaction, what we're dubbing the sensible first step. It's all about natural pairing. Dacian brings milling and mining infrastructure paired with Genesis' growing resource base and not subject to depletion every day by not having a mill, and soon to become reserve-based, and I'll touch on that in a minute. We have 4.2 million ounce resource base, and we are preserving our long life 150,000 ounce base case production plan. It's a genuine win-win transaction for shareholders. For Genesis shareholders, we get access to $150 to $160 million of capital savings for a new plant, and to Dacian shareholders, you get access to ore. We are not restarting mining with the same mine plan, as a definition of insanity would be doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. into the development of our new high-grade underground mine, Ulysses, which I'll touch on in a minute. We also have access to a team that can deploy a lean owner-operator model, all about reducing costs and increasing operational flexibility. So what's next with the Dacian transaction? We have a bidder and target statement currently lodged, and you can accept into that facility come Thursday this week. Operationally, we are vigorously testing various life of mine plan scenarios. We are conducting a strategic review that we want to retain optionality about being able to respond to changes in the macroeconomic climate around cost inflation and gold price, but also being able to adapt quickly to further regional consolidation opportunities. We have a strong presence on site. Lee Stevens is up there, being seconded into the business, and a majority of our management team, including myself, was up there last week. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Dacian team, both operationally and corporate, specifically Dale Richards and Derek Humphrey, who are attending diggers this week, for their willingness and openness to work with us to be able to devise the best plan for the future. We've had lots of toll treatment inbound requests, and I'll simply say we are open for business, particularly in the short term, until we can ramp up our own assets into full-scale production. This is all about natural pairing in its purest form. Significant mining and milling infrastructure, namely a 3 million tonne plant with a total capital spend of $172 million in 2016, being paired with our growing resource base across the Genesis portfolio. We have 4 rigs active across that tenure at the moment, focusing predominantly on resource to reserve conversion. We've also got a couple of those rigs future-proofing our Ulysses asset, conducting grade control drilling well in advance to completely de-risk this asset years in advance of eventual stoping. Enter Ulysses, a near-surface, high-grade, fully funded, de-risked development asset only 30 kilometres south of Leonora. Development activities are due to commence this quarter, which, despite the headwinds in the industry, is absolutely perfect timing for us. And that's courtesy of the abundance of skilled labour, equipment and infrastructure becoming available this quarter from Mount Morgans. I'd also like to touch on the culture that I've witnessed at Mount Morgans. For a site that's been through some tumultuous periods in the last couple of years, the culture is vibrant on that site. And I take the hat off to previous MD, Lee Junk, because his cultural fingerprint is absolutely through that site. Our maiden reserve on Ulysses is also expected to be announced this financial year. One of the key opportunities at Mount Morgans is around pairing of the large Jupiter resource base with our owner-operator model and potential backfilling opportunities to provide a robust, low-cost, cost-effective bulk tonnage open pit right adjacent to the Mount Morgans mill, in which we'll also be able to blend the ore in with our high-grade satellite ore. The exact same approach we adopted for both Carissa Dam and Thunderbox successfully over a decade. From a drilling perspective, we will be targeting immediate optimisation shell step-outs as a priority over the deeper drilling that's been conducted in recent quarters. To round out my presentation and to take us back to our 5-year strategy, our first step, Dacian, is consistent with our strategy on the long milling, short ore backdrop. But we can't unsee other regional consolidation opportunities having done extensive DD on the region. Started by removing all of the tenement boundaries on the map and unearthing the most optimum, de-risked, unconstrained plan we could find, and then working hard on finding sensible transactions to get that realised. The region is already long unutilised infrastructure. The last thing we collectively need to do is put more capital expenditure into an overcapitalised region, particularly in this very hot inflationary environment. We can see the opportunity to work smarter, not harder. Continuing on the theme of openness and transparency, we can confirm discussions with St Barbara are continuing. The obvious question is why? Having done extensive DD on each other's assets, we can see operational synergies that can pair the right rocks with the right mills, the right skills with the right mines, provide operational levers to de-risk assets to the benefit of shareholders, and defer and ultimately eliminate material capex in this high inflationary cost environment we haven't seen since the 1980s. There's not much more I can say about Q&A. Thankfully, I've rung the clock down so I won't get any Q&A. But if you would like any more updates, I suggest you pick up any of the leading newspapers for the latest updates. The only caveat I'd say is don't believe everything you read. So in winding up, I'd like to highlight our key attributes of the business. We have time and capital. We've got over $100 million in our bank account. If we take into consideration in the money options, that's $150 million of money on our balance sheet. We have optionality, as I've articulated, but really clearly, we will remain patient and disciplined on our overarching 5-year strategy, which we're only 4 months into. We have a clear mandate from our shareholders in the market to deliver our growth ambitions under the stewardship of a management team who have done it all before. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ral. Yeah, unfortunately no time for questions. We'll just move straight on.